IVM.
Hey everybody, welcome to another amazing week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. We'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money, for supporting the network. Guys, you should definitely check out some of the content that we're doing recently, which is somewhat COVID related. Pavan's been doing an awesome job on the Pragati podcast. All Thing Policy has also got a tremendous number of really great episodes about what's going on and the impact. We talk about this stuff on Cyrus Says, especially in the Cock and Bull episode. On Advertising Instead, Varun's had a couple of episodes where he's spoken about the impact of this, as is Karthik on the Filter Coffee podcast. And across the network, definitely do check it out. I'm sure you'll enjoy yourself. And with that, let's get you to your show.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. This is DJ, your host, and we have a very special guest on this week's episode. We actually put out a tweet yesterday which said that we were speaking to a current cricketer who had played all three formats for India and 50 plus IPL games as a bowler. Now, it's a testament to how few people have actually done that two of our listeners were quickly able to identify who we're speaking to. And so I'm absolutely delighted to welcome to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast, Jaydev Unadkat. Jaydev, welcome to Edges and Sledges.
Hey DJ, hi. Thanks a lot. It's good to be here. Good to be chatting with you.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I've got Varun and Ashwin, my co-podcasters, on with me as well. Jaydev, first tell us, how are you doing? How has lockdown been treating you?
Well, to be honest, it hasn't been as bad. I shouldn't complain. Well, I am not struggling for food. I'm not struggling with my health. And I think those are the most critical parts at the moment. If I talk about the lockdown, well, obviously I'm not connected to the thing that I love the most, that is playing the game. And it does come to the mind more often than not. But at the same time, I'm grateful that we have all been treating this as a challenge. We are in this together, and hopefully we'll all come out of this soon, and then things will get back to normal. And every one of us is waiting for that moment. But at the moment, I think I shouldn't be really complaining about anything. The lockdown has been fine. I've been getting a lot of time with my family, which hasn't been the case lately. And because of all our extensive touring and everything happening, even if we are not playing games, we are still engaged in some sort of training and everything that goes around the games, right? So this lockdown has given that opportunity to be at home, and I'm enjoying that part, to be honest. I'm loving doing all the help that I can to my parents. I'm loving how a house has to be taken care of. I think everything that I'm going to learn in this period is going to be taken forward for sure. I am definitely sure about that part.
That's great to hear, Jaydev. And Jaydev, let us congratulate you on your recent engagement, and congratulations to you and Rini. Obviously, we're talking about it's great news. Of course, we're talking about family and stuff. So let's go back to your childhood a little bit, your early life, in your journey with cricket, how it started. So perhaps we can start with, I know you've mentioned previously on interviews that your sister played a big role in helping you with studies and managing cricket with that. So maybe give our listeners a little bit of an overview of your childhood, how you got interested in cricket in the first place.
Yeah, so if I talk about my childhood, I would say I was that obedient child. I wasn't really notorious in a lot of ways, to be honest. I used to finish my homework and then go out and play rather than doing it the other way around. So that is one thing that has always been the point which has helped me to play cricket, I would say, because my parents were always certain that I would never compromise on studies, even though I loved the game so much since I was a child. And my father being a lecturer in civil engineering himself, and he was then the principal of the Polytechnic College. So we have a background in our family where education is given a lot of importance. My mother, also being a housewife, she is a graduate and she loves reading books and all that. So they've instilled that those things in me, and I'm glad that they have done it, because at the moment, if I think over others, I would say that it's that part that can give me an edge. And yeah, so I used to love cricket since I was like 5, 6, and my father was a cricket lover, and he instilled that love for the game in me in those early days. I used to play with him in my backyard, and slowly, gradually, I started to know the game little more, and I started getting professional coaching at the age of 12, and from there, it has all been on the rise. I mean, not straight away. If I look at my journey, because I've had those ups and downs right from the start of my career. At the moment as well, if I think about my career as a whole, there have been a lots of ups and downs. It has been a roller coaster of a journey, and I am just glad that the dream that I saw when I was young, the dream that I saw of becoming a cricketer and playing for the national team was fulfilled that early in my career, because so not everyone believed that a guy from a small town would be able to make it. Not even my family, I think, would have thought that I would make it. I mean, they always supported me, to be honest. They supported me because I had made sure that I wouldn't compromise on the academic part as well, and that's why they were never really in denial of me taking cricket that seriously and wanting to make a career out of it. But I would say that I am fortunate as well that I got the breaks at the right time, and here I am. I can look back at my career and happily say that things went my way, and I took the opportunities that came my way more often than not, and I'm sitting and talking about them happily.
That's great to hear. And for any aspiring cricketers out there, concentrate on your studies as well, because that allows you to play more. From what
absolutely, I can assure you that is one thing that can allow you to play the game freely.
That's fantastic to hear, Jaydev. So when did you decide to become a left-arm fast bowler, Jaydev? Because it's not the easiest thing. You're quite a wiry guy. You're tall, of course, but you were initially maybe not built. You didn't look like a fast bowler, right? Like you put on muscle recently. But when did you decide to become a fast bowler? And did you have any role models when you decided that?
So I was always a left-hand dominant. So being a left arm didn't actually require any sort of effort. But then, so about fast bowling, I would say it was the first thing that I did when I picked up the game. I always loved bowling more than batting, to be honest. Even when I played it with my dad inside my house, I would tell him to bat, and I would bowl with different actions, and I would tell him to teach me how to bowl different bowls like spin and fast and all that. So I was fascinated by fast bowling right from the start, and that is the first thing. So when I went for my first outing as a professional cricketer, I mean, just when I went to that academy where I took the initial training, the coach there asked me what am I. So I straight away said that I'm a fast bowler. So I think it came naturally to me. I had that love for fast bowling right from the start. I have heard a lot of stories where people started as batsmen and then they took up bowling and started as a fast bowler, then they became spinners and stuff like that. But for me, it has always been fast bowling that has been the most fascinating aspect of this game. Talking about role models, I would say, so this has always been there in my mind. When people ask me about my role models, I used to think a lot, because not one face comes to my mind, to be honest. And so lately I've come to terms that, there have been multiple role models in my career so far. I've looked up to different people at different times. When I was young, I just looked up to everyone who played for our team. Every single player who played for our team. So, for example, when we won the 2007 World Cup, T20 World Cup, that was probably the first World Cup that I witnessed myself, right? We won in 1983, yes, but I wasn't born back then. So this was the first World Cup. And like any other cricket fan in the country, I was watching it in my room, and I was shouting every ball. I was hoping that we'll win that match, and I was jumping in joy all around the house. So that's how it has been. I have had multiple role models through my career. Obviously, being a fast bowler, I used to look up to guys like Wasim Akram and Brett Lee and Zair Khan and all of them. But as I said, there hasn't been just one face who has been a role model. And for that matter, guys like Rahul Dravid and Sachin Tendulkar, who you have been listening to all the time. Even when I was so young, I remember my mom telling me, she's not a big cricket fan, but she still used to tell me that, if you ever be a cricketer, I'm not sure if you will be or not. If you ever be a cricketer, be as humble and as gentle as these guys are, as Sachin is, or as Rahul Dravid is, or as Saurav Ganguly is, or as Anil Kumble is. So they have all been my role models, if I can put it that way.
That's fantastic, Jaydev. Thanks for a great answer. This is Ashwin, by the way. I'm one of the hosts. But, it's interesting. You obviously mentioned Wasim and Zaheer in particular, right, as left-arm quicks.
Yeah.
There aren't actually that many, but it's also inspiring to hear you talk about batsmen and other bowlers in the game. So let us ask you about, from your childhood when you used to play with your dad. 2010, you made your debut for Saurashtra, which obviously today you are the captain of, which is so phenomenal.
Yes.
But let's talk about 2010, right? We looked up the initial scorecard of your debut. You played your first game and picked up 3 for 36. Do you remember that game? What was it like? Like, what are the feelings and memories you have of your debut, making your debut in the Ranji Trophy?
Yeah, so I remember that game really, really well. I remember the scores. If I'm not wrong, they scored some 300, and I was still able to have those figures. And that was the first major game that I played for Saurashtra, and it was special in that way. And because we actually won that game, it was more special, because I don't think targets like those were achieved in that in that era that frequently. We got to that target of 330 and we won that match. In fact, we won all those 4 games that year. It used to be a zonal tournament, and those were the List A games. Those were one-day games. So we won all 4 one-day games, and we qualified for the next round. So I still remember that very, very fondly. And 2010 has been the phenomenal year in my career. So the Under-19 World Cup in Jan 2010. So I boarded the flight to New Zealand. I played the Under-19 World Cup there in January, and then I landed in Centurion in December in 2010 as well, where I made my Test debut. So I played a lot of cricket in 2010, like every major tournament. I made my IPL debut that year. I played my first class game that year later on in Leicester against the West Indies A, where I registered my best first class figures, which are still my best first class bowling figures. So that was a phenomenal year for me. It actually is the biggest milestone in my career, if I can say that.
Absolutely. And of course, 3 years on from watching India win the T20 World Cup and dancing in your living room, probably, you were playing for India in a test match, making a debut. Yeah. I mean, just talk us through that feeling of getting a test cap for India. I mean, yes, Callis made a double hundred, probably not the best memory for you, but I mean, that feeling of picking up a test cap for India within, I don't know, a few months of making your first class debut, it must have felt surreal, right?
It was surreal. I can absolutely guarantee you there cannot be a better feeling than that. As a sports person, playing for the nation is the one dream that you have had since the childhood, and you have worked, every moment for that to achieve what you have achieved then. So I think there was a surreal moment for sure, and just when you said, Callis made a double hundred, there has been a lot of talk about my Test debut and how it didn't go as per the plans and how I would have liked it to go. And then I was dropped from the team. But, I've come to terms with it. It's fine, right? I mean, I got my chance. I couldn't capitalize on the opportunity that I got, and then I got dropped. So that's fine. I've made my comebacks as well. But if I still remember the good things. It gave me satisfaction, that feeling of being as good as one should be to play for the nation right at that moment, that early in my career. And that has always given me that confidence whenever I have felt down and whenever I have needed that added source of inspiration. I can always look back up to that moment when I got my test cap. And for that matter, I would like to share an incident when I got my test cap that, MS was the captain then. And, my bhai asked me on that morning, on the first day of the test, that you are going to get your test cap today. So who would you like to get it from? And the options he gave me were Sachin Tendulkar, Rahul Dravid, and Virendra Sehwag. So I think that has been the most difficult question asked to me in my career, if I can say that, because it was hard, to be honest, to choose one guy from all those people who you have looked up to all your life and in all your career. So I went numb for a while, and then I just said, I didn't think about it a lot. I just said Sachin Tendulkar, and then Sachin Paji gave me my test cap, and I still remember how surreal it was, how overwhelming it was. And I did become a little emotional as well at that time, because a lot of things go behind the scenes as well, right? A lot of people have contributed to it. It's not just you who have made it possible. So it was an emotional moment, but it is a moment that I would treasure for the rest of my career and throughout my entire life, I would say.
Absolutely, Jaydev. And you were the one getting the test cap, but we're the ones getting the goosebumps listening to your story. It just sounds absolutely incredible for such a young man to have to make that choice between Sachin and Sehwag. I mean, incredible story. But just moving on from your test debut, you then 3 years later made your ODI debut, and 3 years later after that made your T20 debut. Now, can we just ask, because obviously you've played under various different captains. Now, you said you made your test debut under MS Dhoni. You also made your ODI debut under him, and did you make your T20 debut under him, or had the reins passed to Virat by then?
No, I did make it under him because Virat was resting for that series and MS was still the captain.
Oh, right. So you've played under Virat at RCB, right? So how would you say that their styles of captaincy are different? Because we spoke recently to Vijay Lokpalli about different captaincies and Indian captains. So as someone who's played under both of them, how would you tell us a little bit about that captaincy styles? I mean, I think our listeners would be very interested in listening to how they handle their bowlers.
So I feel both of them are great observers of the game. That is one thing in common between them. Yes, they are different in terms of how they conduct themselves on the field. Mahibhai is someone who is always quiet, and he just talks to the bowler and goes behind the stumps and doesn't really react as much, and it's there for everyone to see. But at the same time, Virat is someone who is animated and he loves to show his emotions. So I think they're different in that way. But if you talk about captaincy, I think both of them right sort of mindset about how it should be, because I feel it should always be bowler centric. Every plan that you make has to come from the bowler, because when you are on the field, the bowler has to execute the plans. And if you are not on the same page, it's always difficult to trust those plans and to execute them later. So I think both of them believe that a lot. And, Mahibhai is, I think, has a sort of advantage because he is always behind the stumps and he can have a bird's eye view of the whole ground. And that's why I think Virat also talks about that aspect, that he gets a lot of help from Mahibhai when he's behind the stumps, because getting a bird's eye view of the ground is very, very important. You feel like you have the control of the game from that position. So that way he had that added bit of advantage. But I loved playing under Virat when I was in RCB. We had some good times, and I loved playing under Mahibhai when I made my debuts. And then later on, I also played few T20s under Virat's captaincy as well. And for that matter, I also played under Rohit's captaincy when we went to the Sri Lanka when I played the Nidahas Trophy, and we won that as well. So, these guys have taken Indian cricket to another level. Yes, guys like them have actually made that impact and have actually played a huge role in the transition of the game in our country. But then these guys have taken up that responsibility so nicely that people now can look up to them and say that these are the leaders that are going to carry forward the legacy of the game. So I have been fortunate to share not just the dressing room, but to share insights about the game with these guys, with like playing in different formats, I would say.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing such great stories about some of the leaders of Indian cricket. So, Jaydev, you mentioned 2010 was sort of an important year to you when you burst onto the scene. Another obviously really critical year, at least from the fans' point of view, as we move ahead, was 2017, right? A phenomenal IPL. Pune, 24 wickets, second highest wicket taker only to Bhuvi by 2 wickets. So talk to us a little about that 2017 season. You seem to be getting the new ball, but also getting the ball in the death overs. No matter when you were bowling, when you were playing, you just seem to have this knack to pick up wickets. So the 2017 season under or playing for Pune, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that is probably one of the best seasons that I've had in my career, and I would love to talk about it. So at the start of it, I think I was not in the reckoning. I didn't play the first 4 games. Ashok Dinda and a couple of other guys were playing, and I was waiting for my opportunity. And I didn't have a good IPL the season before that, and that option also was kind of cold for me. I went at my base price, and I was at terms with it because I knew that I haven't performed to my caliber, and people were expecting more out of me. So I was waiting for my chance. But what went right that season for me was that I was waiting for my chance, but at the same time I was in sync with my body, I would say. That is probably the year where I was more in sync with my body, with my skills more than ever. Till then I was fighting with myself. I've always been a big critic of myself. I was never happy. At times when I've got wickets as well, when I come back to the room, I would tell myself that yes, I got the wickets, but this is not how I want to bowl. I still want myself to be more accurate, or I still want myself to be more faster and stuff like that. So I've always been a big critic of myself. But that year I decided that, now is the time to have some self-confidence. You have to have that belief that, I can do it at this level. So I was waiting for my opportunity. I got it after the first 4 games. And that also, as I say, you have to have things going your way for getting that sort of success. And fortunately for me, unfortunately for the team at that point, we didn't do well in the first 4 games, and the guys who were playing in my place also didn't do that well. So then I got my opportunity, and from the first game itself, I started believing in myself from the first over itself. I would say I remember it was the first game that I played in that season was against RCB, and I was bowling against Virat and ABD. And if I want to show to these guys that I'm capable of being at this level, it has to be right now. And that game, I did get 2 wickets, but that game gave me the needed confidence, the much needed motivation for the rest of the season. And there was no looking back from that. I think from the 12 games that I played in that season, there was just 1 bad game that I have had. And that doesn't happen usually in an IPL season, when you are playing 14 games or 16 games if you are in the playoffs. And being a bowler, you are bound to get hammered in one game or the other. But I just had 1 bad game in that season. And apart from that, I was getting those wickets with the new ball. I was getting those wickets in the last overs, in the death overs. I did get a couple of chances to bowl the last overs where I defended 17 runs once and 12 runs once. And that was a special season, to be honest. I think
absolutely.
To believe in myself, and that was something that I always wanted to do, and 2017 did that to me. The season with RPSG did that to me.
So Jaydev, Varun here. So tell us about the 2018 auction. How was it like to be a sensation coming out of that auction? What did you feel? What did your family feel? I mean, the price tag you got was just a phenomenal amount.
Yeah. So I think after having that 2017 season, I was sure that people would be looking to have me in their team, because it was the mega auctions and everyone was in the pool. So I was certain that people will be looking to buy me, but I didn't expect that price tag, to be honest, or being the highest paid Indian player in that auction. But after that happened, everything changed. And what changed the most was, people started to ask me questions related to my price tag more than, what I did on the field. And that was one thing that actually sort of hurt me. In the beginning, people didn't care about how I would feel or how I would react to it or how it would affect my game. Rather the only thing that they were worried about was what I did with the prize and how the price tag would affect me and whether I deserved the prize or not. But not many people realize that it's not the prize that I set for myself, or it's even not, if I can put it that way, it's not my worth, the value that I'm worth. It's just the auction dynamics that happen. And being a left-arm fast bowler, which is obviously not really common in the cricket circuit, I got that added advantage, and that's why those things happen. But it did put some sort of pressure unknowingly on me. Yes, I knew that those things were going to happen, and I always wanted to fight it out, and I always wanted to come on top of it, that, I'm not going to allow that thing to hamper my performance on the field. But then, even after saying all that, or even after realizing it pretty early, that, that thing did play a little on my mind. And I do feel that, it took me some time to get to terms with it. People started trolling on social media like anything. And at the start of it all, I used to read their messages and stuff as well. So then it didn't really feel good. But later on, after that season, the next season, again, I was bought at a good price. And then, those things sort of started to settle down for me. And I think by now I am sure that, if that thing happens again, I will be well prepared and that won't, so people ask me now that what sort of difference I see in myself. Is there any less pressure on me now that I have been picked at a lesser price? And I always tell them that that's not the thing. I mean, I don't value my performance in terms of money. And I don't think people who actually love the game do that as well. What they'll do is they will measure my performances in terms of how good I was last year to how good I am this year, but on the field, not off the field or not with my auction prize money. So that has been one thing that has given me a lot of learnings, I would say, in my career, because it's when you are a professional player, when you are a professional athlete, it's not just the game that you play on the field, but there are a lot of things happening out of it, the social media now and all those stuff. So that matters a lot, and you have to deal with it. You got to deal with it, and you got to find ways to deal with it.
Yeah, and Jaydev, thank you so much for sharing that insight. I mean, it's just a fascinating story to hear, even just after the auction, how you felt. And I just wanted to say one comment. I think your mom probably knew that you're going to be so successful, especially in these kind of auctions, and that's why she probably told you be humble, right? So I think it's a great lesson and advice for everyone.
She did tell me during that period as well, after the auction, when we used to talk during the IPL, all she told me was to still be humble and not really care about anything else. She didn't even talk about any aspect of the game. So I think a lot of credit goes to her in terms of giving me the right guidance about how to handle these situations.
And Jaydev, it must have been a tough situation for a 25-year-old to have to deal with all of that. But of course, you were bought by the Rajasthan Royals, and it would be great to talk a little bit about those characters, because you've got so many amazing characters in that dressing room, right? You've got Ben Stokes, you've got Jofra Archer, Stephen Smith, Joss Butler, of course, the Indian counterparts, Ajinkya, Shreyas Gopal. So tell us a little bit about what the Rajasthan Royals dressing room is like. Of course, you came out recently and told us how Ben Stokes calls you Mango Man. So maybe we can start with that. You're his Aam Aadmi, effectively.
Yeah. Where I won't term it as Aam Aadmi in Hindi, because that would again involve a lot of political
yes,
things in it. So, but Mango Man would be a good term to use. And so they are characters for sure. That's one thing about the Rajasthan Royals dressing room, that we have these guys who sort of keep the atmosphere light, but at the same time, they have that required sort of aura, if I can say that, which all the great players have. Stokesy is obviously a guy who expresses a lot on the field, off the field, and we have had good rapport since we played together for the Rising Pune Super Giants in 2017. So we have had a good rapport, and he does come and talk to me about the price tag as well, because he himself was bought for that price, and he didn't perform to his fullest potential the last season. So then, but then he has done so well for England, and he, he's someone who has been there. So, he comes and talks to me that, these things will happen. People will come and talk to you about the negatives, but as long as you are sorted in your mind, as long as you are confident, you're good to go. So, and Josh, how he has changed the image of the team in the last 1 year. I mean, he won some games single-handedly for us. And he's that quintessential guy, which every team wants. He wins games for you. He's a role model. He helps the youngsters. He's good looking. He is on those brandings and posters everywhere. So he's that quintessential guy that every team wants. And Smithy, of course, the leader. He loves to be the leader in the dressing room and in the team meetings. He likes to really talk through the things himself, and has a real good control on the field, I would say. That's one thing that I have really admired about him, is that he has a great control of the game, and he's always there with the bowler. He's always looking at what the opposition is looking to do. And if I can say that, it has helped me in terms of how I have taken up the leadership for Saurashtra, and how I have looked at things when I'm out there on the field. So, and Jofra Archer, of course, he has just come into the cricketing fraternity, and he has taken the cricketing world by a storm. So they are all correct characters, and I've learned a lot of things. I've had real good times with all of them in the dressing room.
Awesome. And so we have got a question in actually from one of our listeners, and their question is a very interesting one. So perhaps maybe you can answer it from your experience of bowling to people like Smith and Butler in the nets. But we got a question asking, who is the most difficult overseas batsman that you felt it was challenging to bowl at? And this has come from Monica Adireddy 7 on Instagram. So who's the overseas batsman you felt challenging to bowl at? Was it one of your RR teammates, or is it somebody else that you played against in the IPL or international?
Well, obviously one question that always comes to the mind, these guys are challenging, to be honest. If I'm bowling to Josh Butler in the nets, it is obviously different, because he's trying different things. I am trying different things. So he's not the same in the nets like he's in the match. But I think he's one batsman who is really, really difficult to bowl at, because I think guys who can maneuver the crease, who can play all those shots around the field, are always the most difficult to bowl at. Because there are guys like Virat and Steve Smith and all of them, but they will probably play those conventional shots, and even if they'll hurt you, you won't know that they're hurting you, right? So I think guys like Josh Butler, and I would say AB de Villiers, are probably the hunters. They can smash your good ball for a 6 where you won't even know that it can be hit. So it is that bad.
Oh, and of course, if we're speaking of Josh Butler, the question that naturally comes up is the incident from last year. So Jaydev, let's have a little bit of fun, right? So firstly, tell us about your thoughts on mankading. Of course, Ashwin mankaded Josh Butler. RR went on to lose that game. So what was the chat in the dressing room after that? And what were your thoughts as a bowler who may or may not have to do this in the future?
Well, to be honest, being a part of the dressing room then in that game, and then my thoughts in general on mankading are two different things. I didn't really like it at that moment because we lost that game, and it was because of that wicket of Josh Butler that we lost that game. But if I talk about it in general, I would say that it shouldn't be regarded as something that shouldn't be done. Because to me, if you can give a no ball to a bowler who just oversteps by a millimeter, you can't just then keep on giving those advantages to the batsman all the time. Obviously, is that it has to be fair first, and you have these technologies nowadays, and if you can probably refer it to the third umpire and see that the batsman was actually getting that advantage before the ball was delivered. So one thing that I saw during that point in that particular incident was that obviously it is technical, but that after the pause, the batsman kept moving because he was not knowing that the bowler hasn't delivered the ball. So then when you have those technology nowadays, you can always refer it to the third umpire and see that if the batsman actually took that advantage at the time of that virtual delivery of the ball. So if you can take those things into consideration, I would still say that it has to be there. You can't just, and all of us have to believe, right, that it has been a batsman's game. Come on. I mean, you see bowlers being hit all around the park, and obviously you don't want to do something that's not in the spirit of the game. But for this thing, I would say that, everyone can be in terms with it, and everyone can. So if a batsman knows that he can get out that way, so even if he wants to have that momentum of running a run, he would start a couple of yards behind the crease, and then he can get that momentum and then the issue is sorted. You don't need to make a rule. Like, you can make a rule that a batsman is out by a feet or he's out by a meter. If he's out, he's out. So that's how I see that particular term.
Absolutely agree with you, Jaydev. And of course, the pictures have been doing the rounds as the lockdown started, saying stay home, stay safe. So the pictures come back up.
I saw that as well. I think Ashwin himself tweeted that, right? And people awesome. Can take it in the positive way, people can take it in the negative way as well. But
I think he was just having a little bit of fun.
It. Yes.
Yeah. So, and staying with the theme, of course, we are called edges and sledges. Now, you obviously get a lot of edges and wickets of edges.
I love those edges, man. I love edges. As a bowler, that is one thing that I would always love.
That's awesome to hear. But, Jaydev, when the edges aren't coming, do you bring out the sledges? And that is the next question for you. Are you a sledger? Have you been sledged? And if so, what is the favorite sledging story that you have that you can give our listeners?
Well, the favorite sledging stories will always remain untold, I would say, because they are not to be told in public. But I think sledging happens, right? We all have seen it happen on TV, and it happened to me pretty early in my career. So if I can share that one instance, it's not just about the players. So I was sledged by the spectators when I played my first test match in South Africa, and that was like, I was obviously inexperienced at that time, and I gave back to them, and I gave those stares, and I was pretty hot-blooded at that point. But and then when I started to play more cricket, I understood that that's part of the game, and when two teams are fighting out there in the middle to win games, those things are bound to happen. It just doesn't happen with the player. It happens with the spectators as well. And I think it has mellowed down a little, if I can term it that way. It was really strong, say, a decade back, and it has probably mellowed down a little now, but it still happens, and it's fun, being a fast bowler. If you are there looking at the batsman in the middle of the wicket eyes, and if you can just say a couple of words that can disturb him, I think that's a challenge for the batsman as well. And at the same time, it is, you are fighting a battle, you are fighting to win, right? So it is all fair when you are out there in the middle. Only with conditions that it shouldn't be carried out of the field or you shouldn't cross the limits.
Absolutely. So staying within the limits, staying home, stay safe. That's what we're taking away from this.
Absolutely.
So Jaydev, you did not need to do much sledging because you got all the edges in the latest season of the Ranji Trophy 2019-2020. Of course, you were the winning captain of the Ranji Trophy, so many congratulations on that. You led Saurashtra to a fabulous victory, taking 67 wickets, which is a record for pacers. So let's talk through maybe your two favorite spells. From what I've read, I think you were pretty happy with your performances in the semi-finals as well as the finals. So tell us about those match-winning spells, which you bowled in the semis and the finals. And maybe then we can talk a little bit about your Saurashtra teammates and the bromance after that.
Yeah. Well, so my eyes always lighten up when I'm asked this question and I'm congratulated for winning this trophy. That is one thing that that gives me a lot of joy. It has been a special season, of course. No one can say the opposite. But what has been really special about that season is the way I have been able to bowl those spells in tough times, because I always wanted to set an example. That is one thing that I have always had in mind since I have taken over the leadership, since I have taken over the captaincy of the Saurashtra team, that I wanted to lead by an example. And you can only do that when you yourself can come out strong from those tough situations. So whenever the team required me to get that crucial breakthrough, I put that added pressure on myself, and I said, this is the time where I have to do it for the team, and that kept on going and going, game after other. Ranji Trophy is a long tournament, and it is grueling for a fast bowler to go through all the fitness routines, and playing 10 4-day games is a task itself. So I have known this after playing 9 full seasons of domestic cricket, that it is tough to last through the season. But this season, till the finals, I had that added energy, if I can say that, for taking that responsibility. And probably because I love captaincy and I love the leadership aspect so much, I had that added motivation as well. And yes, I got those many wickets. I got 67 wickets, which is probably the highest by a fast bowler in a single season. I would still say that the moment when I lifted that trophy, that silverware, for the first time ever for this state, that moment surpassed every other joy that I had throughout the season of taking all those wickets.
And Jaydev, tell us, we got a question in from Siddharth Poddar, and his question was, how do you deal with bowling in and day out on your flat home wicket? Because, it's known for big scores, right? Your home pitch.
Yes.
So how do you deal with that? And how is it different from the IPL where you play on different tracks?
So I think, yes, that has been a trend, and the Rajkot wicket has been a batting friendly pitch since its inception. But then I've always had that thing in mind that, I was always going to play for Saurashtra, and my home ground was always going to be Rajkot. So I had to come to terms with it. I had to, give that extra, that challenge was obviously there for me to take up. But then I think because I've played on those flat tracks, I have actually gotten the most out of myself. I have had to push myself when I am out there in the middle. I didn't get those easy wickets. I didn't get real sort of help that you sometimes get playing on green tracks and playing in conditions which are suitable for fast bowlers. So I had always had to push myself. And because of that, I think I am this player, what I am today. So I think I never complained about it. And that is why it has helped me rather than, not helping me because it's a batting friendly track.
I think also a great testament to your skill and your fitness, of course, because can't be easy running in on those tracks.
But it's not easy for sure, yeah.
Absolutely. Jaydev, tell us about your bromance with Cheteshwar Pujara, because we only see it on social media. I know you were talking about cutting beans recently. He's already warned Rennie that there'll be a lot of bromance in her life as well. So tell us about your relationship with Cheteshwar.
Yeah, I think I won't talk a lot about it because Rini will be listening to this podcast later on. She is a big podcast listener, but I think the bromance has been down to our all these years of friendship and spending all the time together and talking a lot about cricket. If I want to talk about cricket, and if I don't have Cheteshwar around, I would always feel that void. So that is how our relationship has been. It started with playing cricket on the field, but now we are the best friends off the field as well. And we have actually shared a lot of happy moments with each other throughout our careers. And the bond is so strong now that even though I got engaged, that romance will always gonna be there. So I think we have had a lot of great moments that we'll always be proud of and that we'll always remember going further in our careers.
So it may be because he loves batting and you love bowling, as you've already told us. So tell us, would you rate yourself on getting him out? So hopefully one day we'll have Cheteshwar on the podcast as well. So we'll ask him the same question. How do you rate your chances of getting Pujara out?
Well, I can guarantee you is one of the toughest to get out. So it's not going to be easy, but I would give myself that challenge. I would test myself in terms of rating myself the fullest if I can get Cheteshwar out.
Awesome. So maybe one day we'll get him on the podcast and we'll ask him the same question. So I know, Jaydev, we're going a little bit over the 45 minutes we promised you. So we're going to try and wrap up a little bit. But what is next for you, Jaydev? How hard has the lockdown been for you? Because your career was zooming in the red ball game. The Ranji Trophy, if that had taken place, you would have probably broken Kapil Dev's record as well. And maybe Anil Kumble's record would have, for most wickets in a season, would have been under threat too. So how hard I guess the question is, I know timing isn't ideal for anybody, but how hard has this been on you particularly? Because you were looking perhaps at making a comeback to the Indian team. And associated to that, I guess, for a long time you were seen as a white ball specialist in the T20 game. But now with these 67 wickets in the Ranji Trophy and just a fantastic performance, are you now looking to pivot to becoming a red ball cricketer once again, which is where you started the game, right?
Yep, absolutely. That is one thing that has always been on my mind since the start of my career. I have always loved to bowl with the red ball. So, this season has again given me that edge, if I can say that, now to make my comeback again with the red ball and to prove my credentials again. But having said that, this is obviously a difficult time and it's no different for me. I was obviously looking forward to a lot more cricket because I am in this phase where things were going right for me. I was bowling in great rhythm and sort of looking for everything that was going to come. But then, having said that, as I said, I can't really complain, to be honest. This is something that none of us has faced in the past, and I can't even say what's next for me because I don't think any one of us is in the position to say what's next. We got to wait for it. We got to wait for the right time when everything will become clear. But for now, I think I would still say I will not complain about it because I am safe. I'm healthy. My family members are healthy. My friends are healthy as well. And hopefully everyone is staying and we can all come out of this together. And then again, things will be back on track. One thing that I have missed out on is the grand celebration after winning the Ranji Trophy as well. That was something that I was looking forward to as well, which didn't happen. But hopefully when things would again come back to normal, I think we can all start back from there. We'll have that celebration and then it will again, remind all of us that we are still in the middle of that phase. Yes, this break has come in between. We'll all require a couple of months to get back to the fullest of our abilities. But having said all that, I think whatever will happen for the good for sure.
Jaydev, that's a really nice note to end this podcast on. And again, many congratulations on a fantastic season. And we hope what will be an absolutely fantastic career going forward. You're only a young man, so we're looking forward to seeing you on our televisions and hopefully meeting you in person soon. But thank you again for your time on the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you and listening to your great stories. We will definitely be tagging Mr. Pujara with the note, so hopefully
yes.
you can have a little bit of a go at him as well. But
yes.
Thank you again, and stay safe, take care, and speak to you again soon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot. It has been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for all the nice questions, and hopefully we'll all come out of this soon and then can have a chat later.
Absolutely, Jaydev. Thank you again.
रिश्ते में तो हम तुम्हारे पॉडकास्ट लगते हैं. नाम है फुटबॉल शुटबॉल.
Presenting Football Shortball, a show about three friends discussing our favorite game over a beer. Sometimes 3, maybe even 5. Hi, I'm Shiva, and with me are my 2 sidekicks, Gaurav Sapre and Karthik Iyer.
Sidekick? You mean like Batman's Robin or Van Persie Robin?
No, I mean like Alexis Sanchez, but with a little more skill than just playing the piano.
Ha! Just shows how the best players at Arsenal are mere bench warmers at United.
Oh, thank you, Iyer. But you're a Fulham supporter, so whenever you say anything to support me, I question my beliefs.
Just like how Griezmann would say, एक बार मैंने जो decision ले लिया, तो मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता.
Banter aside, we will talk match reports, transfer rumours, top controversies, fantasy football picks, and so much more. So grab a beer and tune in to Football Shootball every Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, my name is Anupam Gupta. I'm B50 on Twitter. I am the host of Paisa Vaisa, the show that talks money. On my show, I speak to experts from every field of money and finance, from stock markets, equities, debt funds, credit cards, life insurance, every possible area of money and finance that you can think of. We even did an episode on cryptocurrency. I've got fantastic guests from mutual funds to personal finance experts everywhere. Robo-advisory, startups, just name it, we've got it. At Paisa Vaisa, we help you make smart decisions about money. You work hard for money. Now make your money work hard for you. New episodes out every Monday, and you can listen to my show on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you have.